very interesting fireside chat that is titled Towards the Future of Talent Leadership. We're basically taking a leaf from the panel that we just did and looking perhaps a little more deeply at the conversation where we are talking about how leadership is transforming the workplaces, how they are adopting and adapting, and what it truly means to build organizations where people thrive. And to lead this discussion, I'd like to welcome on stage Kunal Purandare from Forbes India. Welcome, Kunal. And joining Kunal for this conversation are two industry biggies, a leader admired across the business world for his integrity and his deep people-first approach to leadership. Welcoming again, Suresh Narayanan, former MD and CEO Nestle India. So now we get to listen to you as well. Please come. And we also have a very distinguished banking veteran who has driven transformation, growth, and organizational excellence over 3 decades. Please welcome Shanti Ekambaram, former Deputy Managing Director, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Board Director, Kotak Mahindra Capital. Always a pleasure to listen to her, and obviously dig the fact that she always wears those shoes with her saris, and she got that fashion trivia back, and we always talk about it. All right, over to the two of you, and of course, Kunal, please take it forward from here.
We have two industry stalwarts who have demonstrated leadership excellence for decades, especially in turbulent times. Thank you so much, Shanti Ekambaram and Suresh Narayanan, for being here. Shanti, I'll start with you. Only a handful of women have held executive positions in the banking sector. You're one of them. What leadership behaviors did you consciously demonstrate to instill specific values into your organizational culture?
Actually, I thought banking is one area where a lot of women have reached executive positions. At least I have seen it in the early part. Maybe now a lot of them have sort of moved out of banking or have superannuated or whatever. So are you asking the question specifically as a woman, or are you asking what brings leadership style as far as women are concerned?
Yes.
Yeah?
Second one.
Okay. So I think, the earlier panel was very interesting in terms of the kind of skills that you talk about. I think the single factor that women bring and stand out, if you ask me, in leadership is empathy. And that word was used many times in the previous panel, just goes to show how powerful and how important it is. Otherwise, as far as, the roles go, leadership goes, competence is gender agnostic. I always believe in that. But I think women bring empathy. Women are better at conflict resolutions, in my view. Women collaborate and are very good at team play. Of course, loyalty is a common factor as far as they are concerned. And they bring a balance in the way they think. And this is how I have seen how women distinguish themselves. I think as far as business acumen, business transactions, like I said, competence, what it needs to do the job, it goes without saying that it is all agnostic as far as gender is concerned. But some of these skills, I think, really help in situations as far as women are concerned.
Suresh, you must have read a lot of third-party analysis about the incredible turnaround that you effected at Nestle India. What is the one thing that you think they got right and one thing that they did not get right?
Thank you for that question, but let me first clarify amply, clearly and loudly that I was one of the leaders in the organization, but the ones who gave out the roar were my more than 9,000 employees. So no turnaround happens with one person at the helm. You may think that you are the greatest, but I think you realize soon enough that you need many hands at the deck to get a fire off and to put a company on the path of growth. So I am very happy and satisfied at leaving an organization in good stead and with a lot of hope and ambition. Now coming to the crisis, which was an existential one, it was one that could have wiped us out as a company and could have also helped us to resurrect ourselves. We did the latter, and I'm happy that we did that. The one thing that I think people saw, in which I tried to consciously adopt in every move of mine, every communication of mine, was a purpose-led, value-based organization that was trustworthy, that was transparent, and that was capable of standing up to the truth at any point in time. So I think that was the factor that also helped us to come out of this existential crisis. What did people get wrong? I think because the time was relatively short, in 5 to 6 months' time, we were back on our feet, and clinically, a brand that was dead. It went from 70% market share to zero overnight. It came back to market leadership in 3 months flat. People thought it might have been a relatively easy task. I think the amount of efforts that have been put in by scores of people, by partners, by stakeholders, by employees, former, past, by ordinary people on working in our factories and in our branches, the kind of effort that they have put in is really immeasurable. And having witnessed it, I can, this memories will go with me, will die with me one day. But I will forever be grateful for the enormous effort that was put in. That probably people outside would not have seen because they were not part of the...
It was probably one of the greatest challenges for you as a leader. What strategy did you adopt during that phase?
Look, I think, when you are faced with a crisis, and unfortunately crisis doesn't come with a calling card. It doesn't come and tell you, here I am a crisis, please deal with me. You don't have time for strategy. You have time for reflection and instinct. At that stage, what does a leader do? And this applies in any crisis. You hark back to the purpose and values, behaviors and outcomes that you dream of, that you have demonstrated, and that you should demonstrate at any point in time. So respect, trust, transparency, probity, honesty, sincerity, humility, compassion, empathy are all the bouquet that is demonstrated by a leader. A leader doesn't necessarily demonstrate business skills at that point in time. Because when you're in a crisis, you're leading a family, you're not running a company. So if a leader looks at himself as a servant of the organization rather than the head honcho sitting in a corner room in a fancy part of the office, I think it's mistaken. So a lot of that is done, and a lot of that has to be lived. I think Prabir said that in the last session. The leader has to live the culture. If I keep talking about sincerity, honesty, respect, and transparency, and I am the most arrogant, sort of dominant leader and a difficult person to talk to, what am I going to be demonstrating? So I think culture and values have to be lived and have to be demonstrated right from the top. Because there's a famous Irish saying that says that the fish rots from the head. And that's so true. Every organization, I believe, many organizations have failed not because of failed strategies, but because of failed leadership.
Shanti, what is the biggest adversity that you faced as a leader, and how did you overcome that?
I think in the services business, the adversity is always handling clients and situations that demand, solutions, right? And if you look across the banking, financial services, whether it's the investment banking, securities, there are always flash points in time when, it is to deal with clients, situations, or regulation. And I think at that point in time, I echo what, Suresh just said, that you just have to immerse yourself along with the team, be a part of the team, and think of a solution to douse the crisis, to get over, because everything in the services segment has a brand reputation, right? And brand and is the only thing in let's say banking, trust is the single biggest brand that matters. And any adversity which relates to a situation which either on a regulation, where, you could get fined, where you're crossing the line, or client situations. I think the only way to tackle it is get deep, get your hands dirty, be a part of the team, quick thinking, instinctive, exactly what Suresh said, to resolve the issues before the fire gets out of the house and out of hand and burns the whole house down. So I think that's the way I've seen it. I've seen many situations in my 35 years at Kotak or my 39 years working experience where, and I call it a crisis a day, there is never a dull day, I can tell you, as far as a leader is concerned. Small things, it can be people crisis, client crisis, product crisis, regulatory crisis, but that's a part and parcel of leadership. That's why you are there.
Technological integration leads to centralized decision making. How does one empower employees at all levels to increase their output in such a scenario?
Actually, technology integration help leaders manage and monitor without too much looking over the shoulder, or contrary. Because the kind of information that you can get at the click of your button on your phone, right? Whether it's the sales, whether it's the margins, whether it's the profit, whether it's the clients, whether it's whatever, is amazing, and thus you don't have to keep looking over your people's shoulder. But I think if you really want an organization that's alive, it's got to be bottoms up and not just top down. And that is where empowerment at every level is important. Empowerment, which is basically, giving some authority, cannot go without responsibility. So the controls that are in place to ensure that nothing goes wrong or it's not being stepped over is also important. And that's where I think technology plays a very big role in being able to monitor and control and actually enables empowerment. The previous panel talked about AI tools. Let's take one of the biggest things in banking. What is it? You give out money. It's credit, right? Today, with the kind of intelligence that you can add to people through AI, some of the decision making can really get very scientific and streamlined rather than just judgment. Judgment is important. So I think, yes, technology integration, you believe can take away the powers. I actually think it helps you control and monitor better, and you can empower people more and be sure that you can control it.
Suresh, the new crop of leaders are leading teams that are technically more skilled than them. Technology is changing the way we work even as we speak. How do leaders of tomorrow bridge that gap?
Look, I think it's a very good question. But one of the gaps that we still have today is that we have technology at our hand, but we still, as human beings, want to serve technology rather than technology to serve us. I think the way in which AI and all the new technologies that are coming into the world are going to impact us significantly is well appreciated. But how can leadership convert it into business cases where people are served first is lost. And I think that is where the challenge is going to be. The challenge of future leadership is not going to be technological appreciation. I think they will be born with technology. I mean, certainly the Gen Alpha that is coming in after the Gen Z now are completely and totally technologically literate when they are born, right? Rather than digital immigrants like my generation were. But at the same time, I think agility, anticipation, and adaptability are going to be so key. And that is where, and these are very human qualities. I mean, maybe an AI can do, and I think in the earlier session we talked about how AI can be used to modulate letters which are very polite and very considerate to customers. But at the same time, I think what we have to understand is that technology can only do that much. Still, leading to lead is going to be done by people. And that is something that we can't delegate to a machine, I hope.
Absolutely. Shanti, you're known to espouse a greater role for women in the top echelons of corporate India. How important is gender parity for organizational success?
I think the CHROs here probably can talk more about it than me, because it's an agenda in almost every company set by the board, right, these days, as to how important gender parity is. I think the way I see it is, there is a balance, I said, yin and yang, right? In our own Indian parlance, we call it Ardhanarishwar, right? And I think that balance is important because each one brings certain skills. I repeat once again, as you get to leadership level, competence, strategy, execution, all is gender agnostic. But how you deal with people, let's take, I'm in the services, I've always been in the services business. It is about people, right? It is about people. It is about how you, motivate them, how you empower them, how you, ensure that they perform and give them an environment that helps them create and perform. So in my mind, gender parity is very important. Having said that, when I look across, I find it very thin at the top. It's good to talk about it. I think it's a great talking point. Boards talk about it, people talk about it. But if you look at it at a pyramid level, it still stacks at the middle to the bottom of the pyramid. And as it goes up, it's like climbing the mountains. The air gets very rare. Yeah. And I think a lot needs to be done about, putting in those leadership traits, training, whatever it is, but developing leaders to increase the parity, starting from the boardrooms to the CEOs and to the top management. And let me tell you, it's just not organizations. I think there's a challenge with women also. Because, like it or not, women are have the 8 arms of Durga. They have so much multitasking to do in their lives, right? So they have to sort of allocate time for each one of these. And once you get to the top, there is nothing. I mean, the organization is all-consuming, and you have to make sure that you deliver what you're there for. But I think organizations, and I think even at the country level, we have to do a lot more. It's good to talk about it, but the numbers are still very thin. And I think if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, some of the most profitable companies are those that have a great balance. In our own bank, one of the most outstanding business has more than 50% gender parity. And I believe that balance matters.
Can you give an example of how your business changed with the rising number of women in the workforce?
I think it depends upon each. I mean, for example, if you go to the engineering shop floor, you still hardly see any women. And maybe, the gentleman from L&T can give us a better feel about it as to whether he's seeing more women in the shop floor. I certainly don't see as many women. But when you come to, let's say, relationship management, I'm just taking an example. Private banking is a great example of that, which is dominated and has a lot of women. Where it's dealing with clients, it's dealing with situations, you find more women. So, and I believe that the engineering shop floor needs more women. I think innovation can be better. And I think men can be great relationship managers too. I don't think that I have a bias towards anything else. But I think it's also the environment and what women have an aptitude for that makes the difference. So I think in my view, women can do any job. That's my belief, right? I wish I had started on the engineering shop floor, but I did not. Maybe the next time around whenever I start a career. But, it's just that you have to acquire the skills that is required for the job.
Suresh, what is the one skill that future leaders or the next generation of leaders must possess to be successful?
They have to, I passionately believe they have to be people-centered with performance. I think the world is moving now too far away from the fact that people are more than job numbers in an organization. And I think the faster we realize that we will be roadkill if we only depend on technology and forget our people, the better it is going to be for us. So I think it's people-centered performance is what leaders of the future apart from everything else, adaptability, agility, and everything else that they need to have. They have to understand, there's a beautiful doha of Kabir. He says, Kasturi kundal base, Kasturi, which is musk, kundal base is in the navel of the deer, mriga dunde banmahi, jo gat gat ram hai, dunya dekhe nahi. So you go around and looking at all the newfangled technologies and getting everything else to spice up your office and to spruce up your boardrooms. And you forget that the kasturi, the fragrance of that organization is in its people. And I think that's something that generations will have to realize. And those of us who have benefited from it, who have smelt that fragrance, are sworn to it for life.
Shanti, you want to add to that?
I absolutely agree. I think I can't see a company being run only by bots. I want to start with that to prove how important people are. I can't envisage a company where right from CEO to the last person is a bot. It's not going to happen. Because judgment, strategy, and human interactions will still make sure that people are important and they are going to be central to any organization. And you will see successful companies, there are enough and more data to prove, are those that have outstanding people. You need different kinds of skills. You need a blend of skills, but it's still people-driven and people-centric. Organizations will continue to win in the future, in the age of intelligence, AI, and even more.
How has leadership changed over the course of your careers?
Well, when I started my career 44 years ago, it was a very different era, right? We had what were called type A leaders, those grunting, few words stentorians who ensured that you did what you were told and no questions were asked. We accepted it because opportunities were fewer, and that's how we saw sometimes, I dare say, our fathers be the same way. So that's how we took it on. Today things are very different. I mean, I sometimes pinch myself that there are youngsters who accost me in the lift when I was the chairman of Nestle and ask me questions like, boss, what have you eaten for breakfast today? Or, are you going to go and play tennis tomorrow, right? I dare not ask those questions. So things have changed a lot. I think empowerment, enablement, skill levels, and cultures have modified over a period of time. But sometimes I wish that we were getting back to some of those disciplines of the earlier days. I think I miss some of that discipline in doing things, focus in doing things, and distractions. Today I think there's too much of distraction. When I started my career, there was no social media. I didn't care what I looked like in Facebook and Insta and stuff like that because there was nothing of that.
Shanti, what is the change that you see?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in the good old days, it used to be command culture, right? The leader would say and everybody would execute. Today, it's actually demand culture the other way. Actually, while we talked about CHROs, the amount of time as a leader and as top management and the team has spent on people, it's just not funny. Yeah. Today, top management, CEOs, boards spend an enormous amount of time on people. So it's demand management. I also think that today's leadership is much more participative, right? And much more listening grounds up, because otherwise you will lose touch with what's happening on the ground. So I think leadership has changed significantly since then. And a leader is no longer lonely in his or her cabin just sitting at the corner. Leader is right there in the center of action with the team and one of the team members, which is a far cry from what it used to be maybe 40 years ago.
As a leader, how does one draw the line between stability and stagnation? How do you ensure that you don't confuse one with the other?
A very good question. And I think output, productivity, and performance actually may give you a hint. Someone's been in the same role for 5 years. The first 3 years may be very different from the last year. when I agree with what one of the panelists said, that you need to keep challenging the person all the time. Just because the person has worked 30 years in an organization does not automatically make him or her, stand up for the next CEO. It could be someone who spent 10 years but who's actually very different, right? So I think the signs of stagnation comes, if you ask me, you can see it in the performance. You can see it in the 360-degree appraisal that comes through. And you can see it in, if you're a leader, you see it in every way. So I think, yes, it's important to have a stable team, but stagnation does step in if you do not challenge, if you do not rotate them, if you do not keep training and upskilling them. The signs are very visible and clear.
Suresh?
Look, I think I agree with what Shanti is saying, but I would just like to add that, one of the privileges that I've had in my career is of leading a multi-generational workforce. And I think multi-generational workforce themselves provide the fertilizer and they provide the natural ground for different types of skills to come. I mean, the young are more impatient. They want to try new things. The older ones are always looking at stability and judgment and taking calls. And I think this blend of the two, of different cultures and of different generations in the organization, do not allow an organization to stagnate. If you had all 30, 35-year plus people in the organization, you will tend to stagnate because all of us will be think-alike people. I think that think-alike culture, which was earlier considered to be, this is the HUL way, this is the Nestle way, this is the Colgate way, this is XYZ way. Those are giving way to, there is a faster way, there is a better way, there is a smarter way, there is a quicker way. This will ensure that stagnation will not settle into an organization if the leadership recognizes and allows for it. Again, leadership plays such an important role in making that happen, that if the leader, he or she, does not realize that continuous conformity is going to lead to stagnation and a false sense of stability. This is like a frog being in water which is being boiled from underneath. You will boil along with the frog will boil along with the water itself. That is the danger that organizations run today, that stability and stagnation are two sides of a similar coin. And that is something that the leader should be able to discern as he goes forward.
In fact, I think vintage diversity or young age diversity is as important, if not more important, than gender diversity today. And that mix, not only just mix of talent from different streams, makes a team very, very positive and very energetic.
My question to both of you all, what is your leadership mantra or philosophy that has held you all in good stead?
After you.
I think as far as I can talk about my personal mantras, first, always hire people better than you. If they succeed, you succeed. It's been something, you cannot know everything. But if you hire people who are better than you and more competent than you, I think you will succeed. Second, the hallmark of a good leader is when you become superfluous, which means I should develop a team so good that if tomorrow I walk away or move into another role, right, there is succession as well as the team is stable and the business is stable and you leave behind something else. I think the third and the most important thing for me as far as leadership style is concerned is completely being involved with the team, giving them space. Okay? I believe you lay the framework, provide the vision, and give space to people to perform. Give them a long rope or push them in. They either hang themselves or they make something out of it. So you must give space to your managers. This is some of the things that I have always practiced. I can talk for the next 15 minutes, but I'd say these two are the top few.
Suresh?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing for me is that I have always believed in working with a strong sense of purpose and values. To me, purpose and values are at the center of my being, and the values and purpose that I reflect, if it's reflected also by the organization, then I'm comfortable. And I've been blessed to work in 3 organizations where the purpose and values have been synchronous with what I've got. The second is a passion for people. I mean, I have always believed that people can move mountains, and you give man or woman a purpose and magic happens. I've seen that happening time and time again, and therefore my faith in people has been unwavering over all these years. And the third one is performance. I have never missed targets. I hate missing targets. And I will ensure that my people, through the mixture of competence, culture, compassion and empathy, move towards delivering the performance that the organization desires, and they then feel at the end of it all, we did it, rather than this man made us do it. I think these are the lessons that I have learned from my own career in the corporate world.
Thank you. This has been an absolutely insightful conversation. I think we've all been blessed to hear all the inputs that you had to give. Thank you so much once again, Shanti Ekambaram and Suresh Narayanan, for your time. Thank you for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful fireside chat.